Yes, Ecarriercheck is the key, innovating the process, can't you see? With the platform so smooth, keeps the workflow tight, efficiency and value, I see every single night. Risk profiles, they got 'em, man, it's no joke. North America's the stage and they never choke. Metrics on point, updated without fail. Chameleon carriers, they're on the trail. Don't play with unsafe companies, don't be that guy. Ecarriercheck, keeping it safe under the sky. 40 plus filters with the search that can drive carrier information in the FMCSA archive. Find your carrier with precision and needs. Location, equipment feeds. They got the keys. FTL shipper leads. They're right there for you. Real-time authorities, what they do. Crazy, breezy, ultimates. The dashboards away. Freedom from low boards. They got it every day. Ecarriercheck's the architect leading the way.
Hello and good morning. Happy Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. I'm excited to be back on the show today to hopefully provide some value today, man. But Jared, it's good to see you. We didn't really get to talk much because you've been, you've been on the phone like crazy this week.
Yeah.
And you've also been doing a lot of sales calls with a few brokerages. So I'm excited to hear a lot about that. See how that's going. But I'm really excited to talk about how Ecarriercheck can kind of give you a break from the low board.
Yeah.
If you use it correctly and if you grind on the phone and whatnot. But so I'm excited to hear kind of how you managed Ecarriercheck while you brokered back in the day, or what that looked like. So, but let's start off. It's halfway through the week. Let's talk through some of those user experiences that you talked to through the phone this week, and how did the sales calls go with that brokerage?
Yeah. I think what's interesting about this time of year is you start to get, the temperature's starting to change. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And so you're starting to see, I know we both have sweatshirts on. Temperatures are starting to change. What's up, T. Harris? Feel okay, 30 shots and 40 pills in 10 days, 3 months to go. Woo! Man, hang in there.
Right, man.
Keep your head above, you know what I mean? Just keep doing what you got to do to survive here. But man, it's been an interesting, talk with people. I think more people are open to communication and conversations with shipping managers. And I think what's interesting too is I've made a bunch of calls this week, and we're going to talk about kind of what we've been doing. But we made a bunch of calls to carriers too this week, and that's been interesting. They're still fighting inconsistency when it comes to rates. They're finding inconsistency when it comes to capacity. Just it's like I didn't get this load, or I'm fighting like I'm not in the right place at the right time. I'm sure carriers can relate to that. And so but I think people are just ready for, let's get this election behind us, and just kind of keep grinding. So these next few weeks, I'm sure it'll be a little more hectic, but people are open to having a conversation, which I love.
Yeah, do you find it a little more hectic around this time for like sales calls, whether it's a carrier or broker calling, but when they're making these outbound calls to shippers, do you find it a little bit more hectic? Like, and when it's around the holiday season, right? Does it make it harder for the sales calls? Like, what's your thought or your experience with that?
It depends on the industry you're hitting.
Okay.
If you're hitting retail, right now they're going hot and heavy. Just pushing. But if you're calling, commercial, commercial companies that are doing like, commercial projects like building roads or bridges or construction, things like that. Those cats are slowing down up north, right? We're going to start seeing that slow down a little bit. So it depends on the industry. So keep that in mind as you're calling people. Kind of go, I wonder what their season is and what they're doing. I can tell you, we've made calls in the afternoons. Big fan of afternoon calls. The mornings are so hectic with trying to get through meetings and trying to get stuff done. And I even find this for myself. It's like, okay, well, how do we make sure we're calling at the right time? I definitely think afternoons are more unique when it comes to that.
Yeah, there's something to be said about just kind of switching it up. And that's something when we talked with Dan Deegan, he's like, what? He tried the whole let's email at the end of the day kind of thing, because most people are maybe wrapping things up, maybe clearing out some emails and just reading what they missed if it was a busy day. So, changing your methods with calling times can be a big game changer.
Oh, I totally agree. You get lost in the fray real quick.
Right. And the main goal is just to have a conversation, right? And just kind of learn and learn about that company. But
Tire killer. I need to slow down. No, don't be that driver that's going 55 mile an hour on the right side. Just keep her down and keep pushing. Where are you at today, Tire Killer? Always love to hear where you're at. Hope things are well with you. Something that I thought was interesting, a couple things about Ecarriercheck, just talking some user stories this week. We've got, I got to shout out to a couple different people that use our freemium site constantly. In fact, which I thought was kind of interesting, we've got a premium site. Just go on ecarriercheck.com. You can take a look at carriers. You can find carriers, and we just make it easy to use versus some of the FMCSA stuff. So take a look at ecarriercheck.com and do that, because last week we were averaging anywhere from 10 to 15,000 lookups a day, which is an insane amount of lookups. But we're always trying to, improve that, help people out and do those things. So take a look at that, check out that. And then the other side of it, if you do look us up on Google, Ecarriercheck, give us a review, man. We put out so much content. Even if you're a freemium user, we love the reviews. Give us a review. We always love that too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we're always open to other ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Take us for a spin on Ecarriercheck here, Nate, because I want to talk about some user stories that I thought were kind of unique this week. We're only into Wednesday.
Yeah.
A couple things that I thought was really interesting is, at some point you asked at the beginning of the show, how do we live with ECC versus load boards? At some point here, as we continue to see that low, the drop in carriers. If you scroll down on Ecarriercheck, we'll show you the current, was it positive or negative this week? There you go. It's a minus 864 this week.
Was it positive last week?
It was positive last week, but that was kind of a rarity over the last even 12, 13 weeks, 14 weeks. We've seen it be in the negative. Last week was a positive at 600 or something. But then this week we're seeing that minus 864. So I'm not really surprised. As we continue to try to just let the air out of the balloon that happened, you know what I mean? And it's squirrely. It's no different than when my kids are screwing off with hot air, or the little plastic balloons. It just kind of goes up and down, left and right, and we're seeing that as well.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, if you think about the phone calls we have, there's very few times probably this year, honestly, that I've had a carrier just call me up. A lot of these carriers, unfortunately, are going out of business, or they're maybe jumping into the broker seat. But yeah, there are still a lot of carriers going out. And like I said, the amount of phone calls I've had from carriers have been very low. Now, 2 years ago, maybe 3, I had a lot of carriers calling me, things were going great and they're looking for more direct relationships. And now they're just, times are hard. So it's sad to see these guys going out of business. But yeah, I love that we were able to show this.
I also think what's interesting is when we talk to brokers, and we talk to a lot of different brokers, carriers, shippers, obviously we try to bring what the today's trend is, when it comes to these conversations. 70% of brokers that we talk to are not going to the load boards if they can avoid it. They're going straight to carriers that they want to work with. So if you're a carrier watching today, I would challenge you to look up local brokers. You can get on our site. We have you can just click on it, go find local brokers, and we'll show you brokers that are working in your areas or those areas that you go to. Tire Killer is an interesting example. This cat, now he runs dedicated, and I love that about him. But this cat is always in Illinois, always in Arkansas. I hope he does slow down a little bit for his own personal mental health. Take a weekend off. Hang out with the wife and just enjoy life. Damn it. But here's the thing. If you haven't taken a moment to find some direct brokers where you just pulled into their lot or gave them a call or shot them an email, a picture of your truck, it's such an interesting aspect because, like I said, that number is huge. 70% of brokers don't post their loads. They just go to their direct relationships. Become one of those guys.
And what's nice about Ecarriercheck, we do make it really easy for whether it's a carrier or dispatcher, to grab this email and
Yeah.
start emailing that broker, right? And you can use our filters if you don't want to find, brokers that have assets. You can use our filters to make a list that makes sense, right? I know these carriers are on the road, but if you want to make a phone call, their phone number's there as well.
Yeah.
And let them know you're going to be in that area. Maybe there's some consistent freight for you.
Absolutely. And I would take the same, if I'm a carrier, I'm going to take the same approach I am from a broker standpoint calling shippers. Call in the afternoon. A lot of brokers are fairly lighter in the afternoon. America's talking about going to a 4-day work week. I think you could just go to a half-day work week where everyone just works till 1 o'clock 5 days a week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I honestly, because I think in the afternoons things just kind of go
Quiet.
we're just slowing down. You know what I mean? And so if anyone calls and wants to talk to me about it, I think half-day work weeks, 1 o'clock, you just move on.
Yeah.
2 o'clock, whatever it is, right?
Right.
I know America's not in the mood to work right now.
I know.
But you got to get out there. You got to change your future. And I think it's really important to put together some kind of relationship plan if you're a carrier and start calling brokers in those areas that you're going back and forth between.
Yeah, and everywhere we're reading, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook groups, everyone's talking about or posting something about I needing carriers out of this area or maybe a broker. So everyone's looking for that relationship and wanting to get that freedom from the load boards. I think we just got to reach out in different ways.
Yeah.
Get on Ecarriercheck, start calling them, emailing.
Absolutely.
Learn about each other's companies. I think that's where it really happens.
Yesterday we've had
for 2 years now. So
been on this dedicated for 2 years. So blessed. Man, I love that.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? Like that's incredible. And this is on your step deck, right? Tire killer. He runs a 48 step. I don't think he has to put tarps on. God bless it. I wouldn't want to put tarps on. Those 8-foot tarps are ridiculous.
Yeah, this is interesting too. You have a 2-year contract. How do you start looking for more business after those 2 years?
Yeah.
What's that look like? Contract's almost up. What's my next journey?
Yeah, this is anytime you're in a contract like this, there's 2 things that can happen to you that are it's a blessing and a curse to a certain extent. Okay, the first thing is that when does Tire Killer go to the shipper and ask for a rate increase? Right? If he didn't put it in his rate at the beginning, which is what I recommend doing. If you're about to jump into a new contract or a contract, I would say, hey, here's my rate for this year. I want to just take a 3.5 or 8% increase next year, and whoop, there's some coffee right there. It'll come into effect October 5th, right? And that's what I just letting you guys know. And what I'll do is 30 days before we take our GRI or general rate increase, I'll let you know that I'm going to go up 3.5%, right? Or 2.6 to 8 or whatever it is, right? I recommend doing that before you get into a contract. However, if you're in a contract and haven't negotiated it, I think it's really important to go to your shipper and just say, hey, I've seen some of my rates increase. Whether it's my insurance, my tires, fuel, we have a fuel table in place, so it's not a big deal. However, if there's room, I would like to take a general rate increase. Metal coils only, that's so huge. So anytime, and I don't know if Tire Killer negotiated that in there. Did you negotiate a GRI, general rate increase, into your contract or not? I'd just be curious, and I think shipping managers, if you went to them in that approach where you say, hey, I've seen increases on this. I know you're seeing increases. If there's room, I need a little bit of help if I could. And you'd be surprised how many people are like, this guy kills it. He's been killing it for 2 years. Let me help him out. Right. I'm going to give him 3 extra cents a mile, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'd be curious too, Tire Killer, how you found this contract. Relationships or just kind of, shaking some hands.
Yeah.
Obviously, don't tell us who it is, but it's possible. You can go find those kind of contracts, that business, and it's nice to have the 2-year cushion to know that, hey, I'm good for 2 years.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I think the next thing, though, you asked another question, and I want to show you an example on ECC, is you asked, well, what does he do? Let's say the contract is up in 2 years. What do we do at that point? And I think, he's got an interesting piece of equipment. He's doing metal coils only. I think if you go up into our search bar and just type in coil, and go to shippers. I have no idea what this is gonna. It's kind of impromptu here, but I want to see anyone that has the word coil in their name, and we have that ability to do that. And then it's just a matter of kind of working through these and seeing if any just kind of fell in our lap. I love that. See, that's huge, man. I'm such a fan. Consistency is so nice because then you're not having to friggin', where's my next load? Right. What am I getting it done? There's only so much energy. You know what I mean? So why not put that energy towards something else, And so, in this particular case, it'll show you, those companies. So look at this, Morrison, Illinois. There's a place called Clemco Coils, right? It's kind of an interesting aspect for him to be able to go, all right, look at this. So there's a place up in Ohio or Plainfield or whatever it may be. So there's an interesting way to find coil companies. But at the same time, maybe I just need to find more leads because I'm going to Illinois all the time, and I just want to find more step deck leads. We have that ability too, and it's just a matter of going in and looking up. Yep, exactly. Just grabbing. It doesn't matter. You can do Arkansas too. It doesn't matter.
No, we're doing that one.
But you see where I'm going with that. And it's like, okay, let's take a look at anyone, look at physical address, and just see what's going on in Illinois. For step decks, and we have that ability right here. So you can just do drop deck trailer and away we go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. These filters make it super nice.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's like buying a pair of pants. Oh, and look at that, we can actually do flatbed commodity, and there it is. So
pay to deliver and pay to deadhead straight back.
Straight back for
that's huge.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a big deal, especially when you're just moving along.
Right.
I would be curious of what you've been eating lately. Your wife always packs you, doesn't she? Doesn't she always pack you dinners?
I think so, yeah.
I think he said that too. I always like to know. I'd like to do a cooking show at a truck stop and see what they're eating.
Let's just see what's going on.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we need to go to a truck stop.
Let's just take the show on the road.
It'd be so good. We're, either way.
Yeah.
These are just a few things that when you're looking on Ecarriercheck, it's like, okay, here's what I'm looking to get accomplished, set some goals, and then use the site backwards to be able to find those brokers, to be able to find those carriers, or to find those shippers. And that's what we like to do. Yeah, she does. What's your favorite go-to? If she's not watching the show, what's your favorite go-to? Is it meatloaf, or does she make a pretty mean egg salad? Our programmer, I got to tell you, our programmer made the most amazing friggin' pork chili this week for the office. And
did a good job.
It was phenomenal. I loved every second of it. Not too hot to melt your face, but hot enough to get your lips there.
Just what we needed.
I needed it.
Especially with this weather getting colder. It's nice.
I needed it.
So, one thing, I mentioned too at the beginning of the show is, and a lot of the people that we talked and helped with the last 2 weeks especially are helping these brokers find carriers that are on the load board. We were able to actually help a young lady find, was it straight trucks?
Yep.
Reefers?
Yep. Yeah, straight truck reefers.
And it was in a weird area.
Yep. Yeah, in the middle of nowhere. And this was actually really interesting. So something that I think is probably more interesting than not. I don't know about you, but I can't remember. Honestly, sometimes I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, let alone who all the carriers were that I was set up with. Right. And something that we have the ability to do, and I thought this was so interesting that our programmer was like, we need to do this. I'm like, yeah, it makes total sense. If you go in and just push my carriers, we have a list functionality that keeps you organized. But here's what's probably the more interesting aspect of this is this guy called us and said, hey, I've got 10,000 carriers we're set up with, but I have no idea if we're actually, do we have the ability to see who in your system I'm set up with? And I said, absolutely. And we uploaded his MCs. And when he's doing searches now, every time he searches something and he sees somebody from his list, he already knows, oh, wait a minute, I'm already set up with these people. I'm going to save a carrier packet while I'm set up. I know they're qualified to work for me. let's go ahead and just freaking call these people. And it's saved them so much time. I mean, this has been a game changer when it comes to time savings.
Right. And to add to that, how big of a pain of an ass is it to upload your MCs on any other platform? If you have a shit ton of carriers, we'll upload them for you.
Yeah, we
want to make sure that we speed up your process of work and don't delay any of your time.
Yeah.
We understand we got stuff to do, so we'll help you out. But that's the nice thing about our site is importing super easy, copy and paste if you want it on your own. But we're always here to help.
Absolutely. Tire Killer says Mexican spaghetti.
I've seen that Mexican spaghetti. Never had
I would be down for this.
Cajun
chicken
pasta,
pasta, name it. She is a great cook. I love that.
That's awesome.
I love that. Mexican spaghetti.
Mm-hmm.
How would you make Mexican spaghetti? Give me a rundown.
I don't know. Just some Mexican sauce. We'll have to ask our programmer.
Is it like do you make like pork chili with like spaghetti?
We'll have to look it up. TikTok will show you.
That's what we're TikToking this right after. I gotta try this. I mean, that's his go-to. Anytime you make a list and it's your first thing on your list, it's the go-to.
Yeah. Let's take a step back though, really quick, Jared, if you don't mind. Let's take it back to the days that you had an interesting story where the load boards went down one day and you were brokering back then.
Yep.
How did Ecarriercheck solve some of your issues when the boards go down, or how did they solve some issues when you couldn't find the right carrier calling off the load board? So there's two different scenarios here. One goes down the boards, and two, the right carrier is just not calling.
Yeah.
How did this essentially, let's just say, save your life or save your day?
Yeah. Well, the way we have it classified, there was two things. Anytime you're trying to find a carrier and it's an emergency, I'm a big fan of, casting a net, right? How big of a net can I cast? I need to let as many carriers know as possible right now that I need their help, right? And so in our particular case, when that went down and it was a disaster, I needed straight trucks in Nashville that weekend. And, the load boards were down. It was the holidays. I just needed some cat with a little bit of gumption that would, move 12 pallets around and, he could run back and forth and just go deliver them, right at the curb and get them into these stores, right? And so in our particular case, being able to go in here and export 20 pages and blow out a bunch of friggin' emails, boom, I was able to immediately hit that, right? The second thing is they had that list functionality, which was incredible. I knew who I was set up with. Obviously, I called the carriers that were doing it prior. They weren't available. They were sick. It was a weird time. I think he was actually sick from, I think he drank too much the night before. That's just me. I'm just telling you.
It happens.
But the big thing was I was able to come in. Our click to dial feature is wonderful because then I can just sit there and just smile and dial. Right. I got the emails out. I got, in some particular cases, I would fax carriers because this is just not to date myself a little bit, but you used to send loads via fax to carriers. Weird. It is wild. I was like, what are we doing? Shipping managers used to do this too. So we would get these faxes. We check our fax all the time. We'd get these. In fact, I remember when we were next door, we had the fax machine right in front of the admin team. They'd check it. Oh, there's loads. We need to quote them. Or, hey, there's this. And you would fax the rates back or fax that I can pick up these. It was the weirdest thing. I don't know where that happened. But so when we had that situation, blowout emails, we're making phone calls, and we're making a very specific list because you can come in and go dry van, box truck, and I knew exactly who to go to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you knew the size of the company you're reaching out to, the risk, the riskiness.
Yeah.
As well. So
yeah,
that's the nice thing. You're reaching out. You can reach out to who you want, right? You don't have to reach out to some of the high risk guys.
Right. Exactly.
But have a conversation. I understand that maybe in those times you had an emergency load, but it's good to have a conversation with the carrier as well, just because in the near future this could happen again.
Yeah, the guy that ended up taking it over couldn't help me that day. He could the following week. He said, "Hey, I've sent my drivers home for the holidays. However, I can bring one back." And he did. He actually ended up. So I put a Band-Aid on. Like it was about a 3-day period.
Right.
The following week, I found a guy when I was making calls, and he was like, I could actually do that pretty consistently. Here's where my drop yard is and all this. And so we had a great conversation. I asked him a ton of questions about his operations. It didn't help me then,
Right.
right? That moment. But boy, I tell you what, he ended up running the following week for me, and he ran all the way through Valentine's Day for me.
Right.
And it was incredible. It was all because I was asking him operational questions. I didn't just skip and go, hey, can you help me today? I need this. You know, I did ask that question, but then I started to ask more questions because he seemed the least curious or was right in that area where it seemed like this should work, but maybe not today. So when you're in a crisis, especially when it comes to finding carriers, you know, I think it's really important that you ask future oriented questions as well as what's happening today. And that guy, a phenomenal driver. In fact, if I had those loads today, I would still go back to him and do that. I don't really have any of those loads. But
why do you think people, you know, first thing to do, let's just say I got a load for next Tuesday. Why is it our first go-to is just go post it and see what happens? You know, everyone talks about having a relationship or getting a good carrier. Why is it that they do go and post it?
That's a great question. So there's two different people that are running up and down the roads, right? The first one is Tire Killer, who's got dedicated, that doesn't ever get on load boards, and it's just moving trucks up and down the road, right? The second people are this weird spot market thing where they don't think about anything but today. In fact, I've had a couple brokers where they called and they said, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I've got some lanes that are coming up next month, and I need to use your system. I'm going to email out some people. I'm going to call some people. But in the meantime, I'm going to post it on load boards. And it's almost like you're eating different fruit. You know, when you get on Ecarriercheck, our goal is to help you find dedicated carriers. Our goal is to help you find dedicated shippers, right? Our goal is to help you find those relationships so that your day-to-day isn't just as hectic, right? But sometimes just getting started, you have to kind of rely on a little bit of that hecticness, right? And those people on the spot market that are on those load boards daily, they only think about today. They only think about this week. They don't think about long term, and their mindset can't, for some odd reason, clear off that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes I almost think like, I know my kids, sometimes I have to just walk away from the situation and then talk about it with them later, right? And so I think if you did find that carrier may be the right one, you caught him in a moment where he's trying to cover his truck that day, that week, that moment, right? Where maybe write his name and number down, call him first thing in the morning and say, hey, here's what we got. Because if he's the right guy, or you think he's the right guy, gal, whatever, don't have that conversation off the load board. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I would totally do it here. I get where people are coming, but that's the ultimate goal, is to get where Tire Killer's at.
Right.
You know, dedicated for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he's not getting paid as much as he could on spot market, or even if he could make 3 or 4 more cents, that peace of mind of knowing where you're going to and from every day, boy, that helps the livelihood of your mental health with what you're doing and how you're doing it. So
yeah, that's fair. Okay. Yeah, it's nice to at least have a list though that you can at least reach out to, and you're a big fan of calling carriers as it is and having a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, maybe talk to me about some of those conversations that you maybe would have if you're just trying to build a relationship. You know, specifically, let's just say these carriers out of Illinois. You know, what type of conversations are we having with these guys? I don't have a load for today or next week, but I want to try to grow a relationship. What are these conversations sound?
I
don't want to waste anyone's time.
Yeah, that's probably the most interesting thing. Everyone in this industry is busy.
Yep.
Doesn't matter who you call or talk to, they're all busy.
Yep.
Now, whether that's busy productive or busy just to be busy, there's two different things. But usually what I do when I'm calling carriers is I'll throw it out there. I'll be like, hey, I know you're busy. I'm looking for somebody that can do this to this lane with this type of equipment at this consistency. It could be next week, it could be today, or it could be a constant contract, right? But right away, you got to show value in 10, 15 seconds. You know what I mean? Because the other issue is that I'm killing the spot market rates. Yeah, absolutely you are. Yeah, you're way, way above of that, which I love, by the way. I love to hear those wins like that. But what the issue is with carriers now is that they're getting just bombarded by dispatcher calls, right? hundreds and thousands of dispatcher calls. And if you're like, hey, I'm a broker out of, Nebraska, and here's what I do, and here's what I'm looking for, does that seem like something you'd be interested in? And then just quit talking. See what they say. See if they think it'd be a fit. If they're too busy, or if they, hey, I know you're busy right now. I've called guys and they're under a truck, they're trying to fix something. The driver's the best mechanic you got.
Right.
And so they're like, hey, call me back this afternoon at 3. Set your damn alarm off your phone and call them back at 3 and talk through it with them. You know what I mean? So you got to respect their time. Who knows what they're trying to fix as well.
That's right.
So that cold call to a carrier is almost the same as a cold call to a shipper. It's just a little bit different, but respect their time, but be very blunt with what you're looking for at the beginning. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, you kind of have a taste too. If what's up, Robert?
Robert, what's going on, bro?
On Ecarriercheck, we give you a really, really good vision of what these companies are doing as it is, right? You know what kind of equipment they have. We can even show you where they've been running. You can do some lane searches on here. On tomorrow, though.
I could definitely all in tomorrow, though.
Oh, yeah. You could all in tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, tomorrow's not promise, that's for sure. But if you look into the carrier profiles, we can show you just a lot of good information, if you will. You can see where their inspections are. You get a good feel where they're running. Matching companies, active insurance, some of the the fleet they've been inspected with, things like that. So you get a good feel for the company before you even call them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nice to have that in my pocket.
You know what pissed me off when I didn't have Ecarriercheck? Oh my gosh. I used to run this guy from Chicago to LA. Every day I had a load. Every day I had the same friggin' load. It was incredible. 7 days a week, we're friggin' dropping Chicago to LA's all day, every day. Van work, right? Well, prior to Ecarriercheck, I didn't have, this is why we started Ecarriercheck, is this exact example. I was pissed off all the time. You don't want to talk to Jared when you're pissed off, and I got high blood pressure already. I'm kind of worked up when I get some coffee in me. I don't know what to tell you. But I would call carriers in Chicago and be like, hey, I need a van that goes out to LA. And the list that I was calling off of from a competing site, I don't need to tell you who, they'd be like, oh, we don't go to, I need a van to go to LA. Oh, we don't go to California. Okay, fair enough. So then you call the next guy and be like, hey, I'm looking for a van to go to California. Yeah, we have reefers. Okay.
Wonderful.
And so it was just one of these things where I was constantly just friggin' I'd make 100 calls. Ecarriercheck, once we developed it and got it to that point, I'd make 37. In 37 calls, I could find it way quicker. And we dialed it down even more where you can find those people very quickly because of how we classify their freight, because of the shipper data that we get, because of the way we see inspections now and those things like that, the OD pairs we're seeing. And now you've got, I've got all these carriers that are actually making these calls. You know what I mean? And so it was a lot easier on Ecarriercheck to make less calls. Because when you're smiling and dialing for trucks, I want the most efficient list possible.
Right.
I'm going to make 100 calls. I want to get that down to 30. I want to get it down to 20. And that was really what set me off, is finding more trucks that can do what I needed in those specific lanes. And of course, California. I agree. California is such a weird state when it comes to all the regulations and laws and stuff.
Oh, gosh.
It's rough. Not everyone goes there. There's just a lot going on out there, And if they do, what'll be really interesting is how they do their regulations through 2030 with their electric regulations. If I was a carrier, you know what I would do? Here's what I would do. If I was a carrier in California, I would set up drop yards at the borders of the busiest interstates that come into California. And I'd be like, hey, here's what we're going to do. We got a drop yard. We've got a cross dock. We're going to move your freight into here. And we'll do final mile delivery into California for you. Because at a certain point, there's going to be a point when California gets it to a point where nobody can go in there. You know what I mean? Or if you don't have an electric truck, you won't be able to go in there. It'll be wild. That's what I would start doing right now. Is I'd buy very strategic locations right on the border of California and Nevada, and you know what I mean, and kind of play this game and these strategic. That's what I would do in the next 5 to 6 years.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
really interesting mindset.
Because not everyone can go into California,
Right.
and it's just kind of a cluster. So, just a thought there. Anyone from California want to pick my mind? Let me know.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Kelly just got to make it hard for everyone.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Just my 2 cents today. You know, Nate, we wanted to show the site today to give you some user stories of how people are using our site, and just give you a quick understanding of pains that we've felt or solutions that we've solved. And here you go. I mean, this is why we built the Ecarriercheck. If you like what we do, please go out, give us a Google review. Even if you're not a somebody that actually uses our site, but you just like watching our show. Come on in. We're the water's warm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's just something to be said too. It's nice knowing that there's a site out there that a broker built, because you've been through a lot of things in your brokering days, and you've talked with many people that you're close with that are brokers, and you hear some of their stories. So it's nice to get all those thoughts and all those challenges, put them together. How can we have a solution of some sort? Well, now we have Ecarriercheck.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we're always open to ideas. If there's something we don't have that would just change the way people do things, we're open to hear them.
Oh, absolutely. I try to learn every day.
Right.
It's not the world's greatest site, but in my mind, it's pretty friggin' amazing. So, appreciate the time today. Sounds like a pitch deck for Shark Tank. I agree. They need to give us a call. You know what I mean? Either that or we need to call them.
Well, Jared, man, I appreciate your time and everyone that was here today. If you guys are new, we just want to touch base with us. Reach out to us at support, our email. Give us a call. Go to our website. Check us out. We love to hear about your business and see how we can help you guys kind of elevate.
Absolutely.
Or let's just kind of throw some ideas around. That's what we do. So we are going to be off Friday.
Yep.
So you guys enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch up next week. And we hope to hear from some of you soon.
Tire Killer, if you can, find this video on YouTube.